Shalom. It's your brother Yerah giving all praise to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakwadash for giving me the spirit to do this lesson. Shalom to the elect of Israel, who are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, whom the Lord will have mercy on in these latter days. Shalom to the prophets, the men of the Lord that are preaching and teaching on the highways and byways in sincerity and in truth. Shalom, shalom. And I wanted to send this message out partly as a warning and also as some as a suggestion. Maybe I'll title this that Psalms 140 has never been more relevant. Because basically the message of this today is that we're about to be in a time that Psalms 40, 140, Salakia, is about to be way, way, way more relevant. Now, it was very relevant. It always has been ever since Esau started his wickedness in the transatlantic slave trade and bringing us over here and definitely taking the land from our brothers who are the so-called Native Americans. It's always been relevant, but now you're going to see as a lot of us begin to wake up in this truth to who we are and who the devil is, which is Esau, the so-called white man. We're going to see that this scripture is going to be it's going to be really, really good as a prayer, man. I have a transcript here between Bill Gates about a vaccine with Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who is an Elamite that he's a popular doctor. I believe he has a show. Maybe this is a podcast though. I won't read this whole transcript, but as you can see, it's fairly lengthy. You can just probably type it in Google and get to it. It's on CNN. It says the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is contributing hundreds of millions of dollars toward COVID-19 vaccine trials. In this episode, Bill Gates sits down with CNN chief medical correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Yeah, he's a CNN pundit, really, and CNN Anderson Cooper. They discuss the prospect of developing a vaccine. So they're trying to get vaccines in the mainstream. They're trying to get everybody used to it. They're trying to humanize Bill Gates because he looks like an utter demon, even his own people, which is a beautiful thing. And through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, y'all are edified as I just kind of read through this, and then I'll read Psalms 140, and that's a prayer that all you brothers, if you know that you're an Israelite, hey, that's a prayer that our forefather King David, he wrote it, as a psalm, you know. And if King David, a mighty man, is acknowledging that, that our enemies are really at the whim of the Most High, really, and it's a beautiful chapter and account, and I'll read through this quickly, and then we'll get to that. It says Bill Gates, philanthropist, at a CNN town hall on April 30th. So we're entering into a tough period. If we do it right now, we'll only have to do it once for 6 to 10 weeks. It has to be the whole country. So that's the caveat. He knows everybody doesn't it isn't with it. So he's saying it has to be the whole country. Otherwise, it implies you have to do it again, guys, and again and again, and have states go with different things, or thinking you can do it county by county. That will not work. See, he wants total control. He wants to lock the mind of people down. It's not enough to do it incrementally, state by state or county by county. He wants this whole thing. He wants it forced, and a lot of Edomites can even see through this. The cases will be exponentially growing anywhere you don't have a serious shutdown. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, this is what he says. That was Bill Gates talking to Anderson Cooper and me 8 weeks ago. Says at the time, over 63,000 Americans had died from COVID-19, but since then that number has skyrocketed. And while many states are trying to reopen businesses and operate in this new normal, some are reporting that the highest daily case count since the pandemic begins. That's not skyrocketing over 2 months. That's not. That's actually down, because if you had 63,000 people died since COVID started at the beginning of March to April 30th. And today you had May and June basically. Only another 40,000 have died. That's not a skyrocket, you know. Like it's trending downward in terms of deaths, and you really can't even uh, fully believe the death numbers because Esau lies, he manipulates, he reports on the things that he wants to feed you. Uh, you never hear about the mortality rates. You know why? Because they want to scare people, and the mortality rate doesn't scare people. When you tell somebody that there's a 0.005% chance of you dying from the coronavirus, it's not enough to keep people in fear and wanting to social distance and wear uh, a mask all day. You know, um, so that's bullshit. That this whole thing is skyrocketed. Let me scroll down. Gupta, Bill, thanks so much for coming back to speak with us. I just thought we'd be having a different conversation, frankly, end of June about this. Last time we spoke, I asked you about cognitive dissonance. So that see the slander that's coming out, cognitive dissonance. If you disagree, this is the camp that you fall into. You know, says you know this idea that people are already taking victory laps, acting as if the pandemic is over. It is over. You said the spike happened in April, and it did. You know, and the deaths are going down. I mean, we know about testing issues. We're going to talk about that. Mask, physical distancing, but just the mindset overall. How much do you think that's contributing to cognitive dissonance, and why? Why here? This is what Gates says. Well, it's almost as though people have a willingness to go into lockdown once, and for a certain period. Maybe that's not surprising. Then it takes to get them to extend it past a certain thing, or even to inconvenience themselves with masks, requires maybe somebody they know to not only test positive, but maybe get very sick as well, And I read that as a veiled threat, you know. Like, if you niggas aren't going to do it, then we're going to release something real to make you niggas want to do it. And I know in his heart he's thinking about uh Jake, when he's saying this, you know. Uh, and so the range of behaviors in the U.S. right now, some people who are being very conservative in what they do, and some people are basically ignoring the pandemic. It's huge, and we've worn out people's patience, and if they don't see it in some way, that some people feel like it's a political thing, which is unfortunate because it is a political thing. Most people don't give a damn about the coronavirus. The vast majority of people don't care. You know. Gupta says, so right now there's been roughly 5 to 7% of the United States population that's been infected with the virus. That's a rough number. It's a lot of people, and it's way higher than 5 or 7%. Way more people have been infected. But see, that utterly cripples the mortality rate even more. You know, which is why even now you don't talk about the mortality rate. Uh, but I know you heard a lot of people from Dr. Michael Osterholm, who's the director and co-founder, blah, blah, blah. And he says, interesting quote, he said, the virus is not going to slow down transmission overall. It may come and go, but it's going to keep transmitting until we get at least 60, 70% of the population infected, which may give immunity, or if we get a vaccine. So he's saying that the virus is not already at this level, 60, 70%, which I believe it is. There's no way you stop the coronavirus. There's no way, that it only hit 7% of people, And even still, even if that's true, why the hell would you shut down the entire global economy for that? You got uh, almost 50 million people out of work now, you know? And those are people who are infected, 5 to 7%, not the people who died. because this man is the devil. Says that's right. Even with the vaccine, here we go. There's two characteristics of a vaccine. One is whether it protects you individually from getting sick, and the other is whether it stops you from being a transmitter of the disease. Uh, and it's possible the vaccine will be better at protecting you individually and not stop you from transmitting. So that defeats the whole purpose of the vaccine. People are already fighting the coronavirus with their own immune systems without the vaccine. So if it's not going to stop you from transmitting it, what's the point? You know, this is the stupidity of vaccinations when you get into it. When you logically think about it, it makes very little sense, especially for the risk that Esau is trying to force on you by putting mercury and animal parts and baby parts and all manner of just abominations, and they're not liable at all for anything that happens to you. You know, they're very shy about the ingredients, what they put in there. You know, and they're not accountable for what any of those ingredients would do to you. You can't come back and sue them like you can a drug company. You know. Um, So he's admitting it right here as we're trying to look at the various vaccines and how they measure up on those two dimensions, but it's not guaranteed that the vaccine will be a perfect transmission blocker. Well, why would it block it at all? You know, because you're out here saying out of the other side of your mouth that there's these asymptomatic transmissions, and that's the reason people should social distance to begin with. So if there's asymptomatic transmissions, then you can't stop the virus from transmitting. You know, so this whole thing is just nonsense, and this is Gates trying to get on CNN basically, and humanize himself and try to explain people and calm them down about why the vaccine is needed, it's necessary, or you just don't know the science. You know, the typical talking points Esau tries to use to domesticate you. You know, to make you docile. You know, when he's about to do some wickedness. So were the two vaccines, Oxford University, AstraZeneca, and the Johnson and Johnson, that are similar in their approach. They both use an adenovirus vector where the animal data looks promising. So here you go, they're messing with animals, and they're gonna, you know, in about a year, they're just gonna start trying it on humans, you know, and those are the two with the most promise because we know how to scale up the manufacturing, and our foundations putting together agreements where we put hundreds of millions into a factory to have factories that are available even to the countries that aren't super wealthy. So that translates to Jake countries, you know, definitely over here in the Americas, you know, uh, definitely gonna hit Africa, you know. That like Esau is off the chain, bro. Uh, it says they may not succeed, but I'm hopeful for those two vaccines, and that's why we're putting up hundreds of millions, so it'll be completely wasted if those succeed. So here is a man who all he couldn't stop at a billion or 10 billion or 40 billion, but all of a sudden he's got it in him to stop making more money, to stop making more profit. You know, now he can donate and lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Is that likely that a man who has shown no ability to stop getting more and more profit and money over time to all of a sudden want to give away his fortune to a bunch of niggas, Africans, people who he looks down on, who he doesn't care about, who has no stake on whether they live or die, who we know wants less of them on the globe. He wants a population reduction. Does it make sense that he's just giving hundreds of millions out of the kindness of his heart? You know, you just look at it through the spirit, and using logic. Like this man is definitely a counterpart of Satan. you know, um, they bring up Fauci here. Fauci's a damn puppet. Cooper says, I mean, you mentioned the timeline a little bit, is that realistic? And also you talked about distribution. You have a vaccine that works, and then actually getting it distributed and figuring out its distribute how it's distributed and paid for. What sort of timeline is that? Gates says the big problems are safety and efficacy, and phase 3 trials are very complex to do, and you may see a safety signal that forces you to try out in a broader set of people. The two constructs, both Fauci and I, are very hopeful that they'll work. So you see how they're working together. I talk to him regularly, more often than he talks to some other people. So Gates is in the ear of the White House, you know? And Gates is a so-called leftist on the left liberal side of things, but he's talking to the White House. Because these elites, there is no left right, you know? They know that they're the dragon, you know? So they're not they're not a part of this facade of those two horns, the left and the right, Democrat, Republican, the Senate and the House, and all of this bullshit, you know, because ultimately they're working all together. They have an agenda, you know. And it says, and his view of chances, and his view of the chances, and our view are very aligned. We're seeing the same data. We're sharing the same data. So I have a lot of hope for these two constructs. The safety and efficacy is there. The factory piece is being done. The cost of those two vaccines. So even though Bill Gates knows that a lot of people are not with this vaccine, he's still building the manufacturing plants. He hasn't gotten an okay from the American public. He hasn't got a majority of people say, yeah, I'll get vaccinated. But yet he's still pumping these millions, and I believe billions of dollars into this vaccine to manufacturing them. Because he knows that they don't ever plan on going back. He knows that there is no scenario where him and the U.S. government don't push these vaccines on people. He knows it's a done deal. They've already shook hands. The factories are going to be built. The vaccines are going to be made, you know. So what does that mean to the rest of the population here, you know? They're looking to force it on people. Here it goes. The cost of those two vaccines, ability to production is very, very strong. And logistics is in the U.S. are not an issue at all. We can get this thing out there. Now, some people, you know, have a choice of whether you take the vaccine or not. So that's the final hurdle. So he's talking about this being a hurdle, getting people to take it. So Anderson Cooper says, in terms of who gets the vaccine first, your wife, Melinda Gates, said that this week that healthcare workers should get the vaccine first. And then she said, quote, it's also going to be black people who really should get it first, and many indigenous people. Now, who is that? Who are the so-called black people and the so-called indigenous people? Hey, man, Esau knows exactly who we are, and this is proof that there's a plan that's targeted to our people. You know, that's proof. You know, just because they're letting a bunch of old Edomites die to this coronavirus, that don't mean shit to them. They're seeking to take over the U.S. in a major way and to put us back really in chains in some form, shape, whether it be a techno chain, which I believe that's what it's going to be, a technocracy, not physical chains, but they're seeking to do that and mainly enslave us, you know, because they know the Lord is on his way back, you know. Hey, I got to get Revelation 12, because when you read that, you see the devil showing his goddamn teeth, man. That's crazy. He just straight up saying it. We're coming after you niggas, basically. It says, therefore, Revelation 12 and 12, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. So it's not just us, it's all the inhabitants of the earth, because they're going to try to vaccinate everybody. They're going to try to put this chip in everybody. You know? Gates says, yeah. You know? to this black and indigenous comment. Uh, so if what we know is that it protects you from getting sick, and if it works all the way up to into very high age ranges, then the rational thing to do would be to take the risk for each person and go down. And the person most at risk of getting infected and having bad outcomes, you would go down and get the vaccine to them first. And then all of a sudden, once you got those people out the way first, then all of a sudden it's working as herd immunity before it gets to white people, which they're going to get it to white people as well anyway. But you see how they're targeting and they're prioritizing Jake here. And you would go down and get the vaccine to them first, and clearly certain jobs expose you more. We know that certain locations, unfortunately, ethnicity is associated with both higher infection rates and, adjusted for age, somewhat worse outcomes. And so that would influence how during the period of shortage, you actually do that allocation. So across countries, this is going to be complicated, and within countries, this is going to be complicated, at least for the people who want the vaccine, which it should be most people, because he knows it's not. He knows that it's not. This even people who weren't really anti-vaxxers, even to them, they know that this feels forced. They know that the coronavirus is bullshit, for lack of a better term. Cooper says, I mean, you saw this coming years ago. No one really listened to you then. Well, he saw it coming years ago because he's planning it. And this goes down more and more, but you brothers can read the whole article. But you see how the devil is just, he's sharpening his tongue, as the scriptures say. He whet his tongue like a sword, But either way, I just wanted to share that article with you. When you see more rhetoric like this, hey, this prayer here that I would say is a prayer you can send up is Psalms 140. So this is going to be a comfort to a lot of brothers in the upcoming days, now and in the near future, And it goes into, like, even from Esau when he got here, he started taking over the land here in America. It's very, very relevant for that as well too. This is Psalms 140:1. It says, "Deliver me, O Lord, from the evil man. Preserve me from the violent man." which imagine mischiefs in their heart, and continually they gather together for war. And that's really been his whole MO this whole time. Mischief, mischief. They're constantly gathering for war, Does that not sound like when Esau showed up here in the Americas? Speaking mischiefs, What about democracy, Christianity? All of this nonsense that sounds kind of soft and, welcoming on the surface level. But when you get down into it, you see it's just a weapon, to enslave you or to trap you, It's a snare. Because they've always meant war. And you can tell by how they went from the 13 colonies in 1776 to just 75 years later being in California in 1850 as a state, That's imperialism, And let me get verse 3. It says, "They have sharpened their tongues like a serpent," because they speak these sharp, these smooth words, these very deceptive words, which is synonymous with the serpent, using guile. Adder's poison is under their lips, Salah. So all these things that they're speaking about how they're looking out for the people who are, who are the elderly and the black population, the indigenous people, and putting them first. That's all poison under their lips. They're seeking to destroy, As I said, they're gathered together for war, because ultimately, if we don't do it willingly, they will force us, and that will come to pass, Verse 4, "Keep me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from the violent man, who have purposed to overthrow my goings. And that is exactly what he's doing. Even this so-called bullshit life that Jake has built up in America, he's even gonna take that from you. And this ain't living at all. You niggas just, even if you got some money in this society, you go to, Malibu Beach or some shit for vacation, or Vegas, or this ain't living, man. You know, this ain't living. This is bullshit. Everything is defiled. It's polluted, and even if it wasn't, why would you want to live on a blood-soaked land like America? The Lord says this place is unclean because of how this place was acquired. Hey, the blood of the land, the pollutedness, the uncleanness of the land, it cannot be cleansed unless it's by the blood of him who shed it, pursuant to Numbers 35 and 33. Okay? So even if it was, why the hell would you want anything to do with this place? If you're a man of the Lord, you're upright, you know? But even all of this jewelry, some Jakes have money, but even all of that, he's seeking to overthrow that. We're already in the shadow of in the valley of the shadow of death, you know, because this man hates us, In his spirit, they hate us. Verse 5: The proud have hid a snare for me, and cords. They have spread a net by the wayside. They have set gins for me. It's a lot, and that's what this coronavirus vaccine nonsense is. I would bet a lot of money that vaccine is going to have all type of shit in there to sterilize you, because they don't want you have. We know that Bill Gates wants a lower population. He's funding Planned Parenthood and all kind of madness overseas. Like, hey man, you take that vaccine, hey, you're gonna have to pray. You have to pray that the Most High has mercy on you if you were just ignorant, But the scriptures say, "Don't be ignorant to Satan's devices," and I believe that 2 Corinthians 2:12. Verse 6, it says, I said unto the Lord, Thou art my God, hear the voice of my supplications, O Lord. O God, the Lord, the strength of my salvation, Thou hast covered my head in the day of battle. Okay, now how do we get our head covered in the day of battle? Repenting, coming back to the Most High. Stop eating pork. Show the Most High something that you're not with this place. Because if you got this in your heart that you're gonna make it here, you trying to build this place up, or you hoping that it gets by, that this shit blows over. Hey, you're what you call lukewarm in the scriptures, and the Most High is gonna spit you niggas out. Okay, you should at the very least be making an effort. You know, how hard is it to not eat pork, to not shape up your beard, or your face, or your head, man? These are small things that you can do just to show the Most High, just a token of your allegiance of whose side you on. Even if you don't know the law, if you don't know all the scriptures, you know, the Sabbath and all the, there's doctrines in the scriptures that you do have to learn, but ultimately, man, the Most High is about to completely separate niggas who are with it and who are not. Ultimately, you know. And it's only the men of the Lord that are making an effort now, that are seeking the Most High early, that the Most High is going to have mercy on. Now, there were some that the Most High is going to snap his finger, Thanos style. He's going to deliver them as well. But, hey, that's not a wise thing to do, man. Paul says give diligence to make your calling and election sure, you know. So this is how we get our head covered in the day of battle, making that effort. Verse 8, grant not, O Lord, the desires of the wicked, further not his wicked device, lest they exalt themselves. This wicked device is this goddamn vaccine, which I hear a lot of people say Maxine is YouTube is listening and all this nonsense. But hey, at the end of the day, this is a wicked device that he's using to destroy us. He wants to sterilize us. He wants us wiped off the face of the earth, and he hasn't been able to do it because he's a loser, and the Most High hasn't given him to be able to do it. The Most High has preserved us. Our very presence alive today, through all what we went through, is a miracle. And when you mix in the fact that we now remember who we are, That's a huge miracle that we even remember who we are. You know, so you can't be taking this for granted. Okay. Verse 9. As for the head of those that compass me about, let the mischief of their own lips cover them, and that's exactly what's happening. The mischief of their own lips is covered, and people are starting to see through it. Bill Gates, he's nervous. You can see when he's having these transcripts, he's talking to people. He knows that the majority of people are not with these vaccines. He knows he's being exposed. He knows he's anti-population growth. You know, and nobody trusts a man who's shown the only ability to just get money by any means necessary, and all of a sudden he's just a giver at the end. You know. Nobody trusts you, not even your own people, you know. Verse 10, let burning coals fall upon them, let them be cast into the fire, into deep pits, that they rise not up again. So, you know, King David is singing this, you know. Really, it's a prophetic prayer slash prophecy, and it shows a great deal of humility if you know the mightiness of King David, you know, out there on the battlefield, you know, and he's pleading with the Most High to grant him, you know, salvation from the wicked, showing you that King David put his trust in the Most High, you know, being a mighty man. Well, what the hell should we be doing? You know, we shouldn't be trying to build up another Black Wall Street. We shouldn't be trying to build a new community and as a hedge against Satan. The Most High set him up. You know, it says, "Let not an evil speaker be established in the earth," and the Most High has allowed it to happen. You know, it says, "Evil shall hunt the violent man to overthrow him." So all of this wickedness is coming back in Esau spitting out in the earth, the so-called white men out in the earth. It's all coming back. The Most High has just been saving up a giant tally, you know, and he's about to vomit it all back up onto the house of Esau, you know, and to all these other heathen as well that's been confederate with him. Verse 12, I know that the Lord will maintain the cause of the afflicted and the right of the poor, and that's us, you know, his people. So, you know, at the end of the day, brothers, we need to come back to these scriptures, man. You know, Psalms 140 is a very powerful chapter, especially in these days that we're living in, where we're gonna see the prophecy just come to pass. That I don't know how you can get around saying that we're not in the time of prophecy, because I mean 2020 has been, it's only halfway through, and it's been, man, more has happened in the last 6 months than in the last 10, 20 years, you know. This is crazy, you know. So if you don't think we're living in that time, then you know, you need to pray that the Most High puts the Spirit on you for understanding, you know. Last verse 13, surely the righteous shall give thanks unto thy name, the upright shall dwell in thy presence, you know. So you want to be a part of that number, Akim, you know. And the way you do that, you know, to be covered in that day of battle, as it says here, verse 7, repent, you know. Repent, come back to the Most High, realize who you are. You know, you're an Israelite. And ultimately, you know, you want to make sure you pulled all your desires, you completely turn back from anything in the ways of this world and come back to the law, statutes, and commandments, the ways of the ways of life, you know, another way to put it, you know, the righteous path, you know. I pulled up Psalms 124 as well. It's another good one to read. You brothers can read those two chapters, and with that, hopefully I wasn't too long, and I was able to edify you brothers. You know, shalom to all you Akim. Call halal Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakwadash, Wa Abad Babal.